Now, it's no secret that I'm really hard on mainstream media, but I like to be fair. And when they deserve credit, I'm going to give them credit. So here's exactly that. This is Ali Velshi, who I've had deep disagreements with in the past, but he's doing a stellar job fact-checking Trump's bullshit claims on the economy. Check it out.
We've accomplished an economic turnaround of historic proportions.
All right. Not sure what turnaround he's referring to. The president inherited an already booming economy. The U.S. economy is now in its 10th year of growth. 10th year of growth marked by falling unemployment and gains in home values. These are trends. You can look up charts. It's not a turnaround. This is a period of recovery that began under President Obama in the wake of a major recession. You can date it back to March 9th of 2009.
I am thrilled to announce that in the second quarter of this year, the United States economy grew at the amazing rate of 4.1%.
Well, he's correct. It was 4.1% for the second quarter, but that's actually not unheard of. Take a look at this, okay? This line here is 4%. He popped above 4.1% in this quarter, but the United States actually saw stronger quarterly increases 4 times during President Obama's term.
And with the help of Republicans in Congress, we passed, without one Democrat vote, the biggest tax cuts and reform in our history.
We've talked about this one before, Mr. President. President Trump's tax cut is actually the 4th biggest as a percentage of GDP, because that's actually how you have to measure them. It's the 4th biggest in history. The latest round of tax cuts was smaller than Obama's 2010 tax cuts as a proportion of GDP, the 2013 tax cuts, and doesn't hold a candle to Reagan's Economic Tax Recovery Act of 1981, which was the largest tax bill in the last 100 years.
We have added 3.7 million new jobs since the election. A number that is unthinkable if you go back to the campaign.
Okay, the president's claim that 3.7 million jobs is unthinkable, except that the figure's actually on pace with the last few years of the Obama administration. This is the average for the Trump administration. Ooh, look at that. That's the average of the last few years of the Obama administration. President Obama actually created more jobs in the last 18 months of his administration than President Trump created in the first 18 months of his administration. By the way, then the president moved on to wages.
Manufacturing wages are expected to rise at the fastest rate in over 17 years.
Now, this one had me scratching my head because we couldn't figure out the source for this, but we finally did. It sounds great. It's actually based on a survey of manufacturers, not any economic data. It's hard to believe, considering that wage growth has actually slowed. This is wage growth in the Trump administration. This is wage growth in the Obama administration. It has slowed significantly under President Trump's administration. So the whole thing is a little bit of a puzzlement.
That was great. That was great. In fact, if mainstream media did that all the time, I wouldn't be beating up on them on a daily basis. I'd be giving them credit on a daily basis. So that is more of that, please, because that was very nuanced. There was a lot of detail in there. It was objective. And, here's the thing. With President Trump, it is sometimes completely overwhelming to try to break down what he's saying, because so much of what he says is untrue, and they're just like, casual side comments that he glosses over in the midst of making other comments. It's like falsehoods within falsehoods within falsehoods, that it's like you just get worn down and you're like, I don't even know if I want to take on this gargantuan task, because it requires to break down like a 3.5 minute clip of President Trump. It takes like 30 minutes of checking shit. And then, you'd have to present it. And it becomes such a gargantuan task that oftentimes you're just like, okay, I'm going to opt for a different segment, a different clip, something else to talk about, because this is just too much. It's just overwhelming. And Ali Velshi there decided, like, no, I'm going to, let's actually take this on. And that clip wasn't even 3 minutes. That clip was probably, 40 seconds of Trump. And in that 40 seconds, look how many factual errors there were. And that's the point. That's what I mean when I say it's overwhelming. If you do the rest of that clip also, you're going to have, it's about the same rate of fact-checking per minute there. Like, that's going to continue throughout the entire speech. And I've noticed it, like, when whatever the speech to Congress is called. Why am I blanking on this? State of the Union. when he gave the State of the Union, I was just flabbergasted. I'm watching this thing like, okay, that's not true. That thing's not true. That thing's not true. That thing's not true. That thing's not true. And it's like, you can't cover it all and break it all down, because that'd be like a fucking 8-hour segment to cover his, whatever it was, hour-and-a-half speech. And it's like, it's just so tedious and overwhelming. But he took it on there, and he did a wonderful job taking it on. And I especially now I went into watching this segment with a skeptical eye, because I'm like, all right, let's see what he does here. I thought he was going to leave out the wages thing, and that would have driven me nuts, because I was expecting a fact check along the lines of this. Yes, the economy is doing wonderful, but it was also doing wonderful under Obama, full stop. No, that wasn't really what he did. He said, yeah, on paper, the stock market's doing great, but it was under Obama. But then he also added the wages part, which to me is the most important part, because it kind of blows up this whole notion of like, well, everything is going so well, and look at the unemployment rate. No. He kind of put it in perspective there with that last fact about wages, how it's like, yeah, that's all smoke and mirrors, because none of that gets to your regular person. Your regular person is still feeling the sting going all the way back to the Great Recession. And I'm not saying, everything was hunky-dory under Obama. No. It was under Obama, you did have the stock market rebounding. You did have jobs come back, and so we were no longer in the Great Recession. We dug ourselves out of the Great Recession, but it was low-wage jobs being created. And under Trump, same thing. Stock market booming, unemployment down, but now wages are even worse. And he tries to get away with it all the time. Like, he keeps bragging about the economy and bragging. Number one, it's not that good. Number two, what the fuck are you going to say now when this thing crashes? And it is going to crash at some point. Because my guess is he's going to immediately turn around and try to blame Obama. But it's like, dude, you were just taking credit for all the good shit 5.5 minutes ago. And you've been doing it since halfway through your time in office. You've been taking credit for the good shit. So then when something bad happens, you can't turn around and blame the last guy, because it's not like, oh, only when it's good things I'm responsible. When it's bad things, the other guy's responsible. So that was just a great segment from Ali Velshi, and I wanted to give him credit on that. I'm really hard on mainstream media because I think they deserve it and they earn it, but when they do something right, we can take the time and we can give them some credit. And hopefully, if they do this all the time, do this with healthcare policy, do this with the economy, do this with foreign policy, then, okay, they're doing a good job. And to Ali Velshi's credit, on Medicare for All, he's actually done this. He's in favor of a single-payer system, and I think he's Canadian, so he knows, like, oh yeah, the system's actually better than what you have. So he's done that. I think on foreign policy is where I have my disagreements with him, but if he keeps doing segments like this, then wow, that's good stuff.